In this video, we're going to be going over PAILs and RAILs, what they are, why you should be doing them, and how you should be doing them. So PAILs and RAILs, which is short for progressive angular isometric loading, and RAILs is regressive angular isometric loading, is a way that we actually create more usable motion, more mobility at the joints we're trying to target. It's not enough just to stretch. Stretching will allow us to increase the passive flexibility or passive range. The PAILs and RAILs is actually how we solidify those mobility gains by adding strength on the other end. So our PAILs and RAILs I will do from a couple different positions. I will explain it from the 90-90 position, which is a very common position that we'll be using to improve hip mobility. So if we are in what's called external rotation, my PAILs and RAILs will start with what's called a 2-minute passive stretch. It can be 2 minutes, it can be more than 2 minutes, whatever you need for your program, but usually minimum is a 2 minutes to allow our nervous system, allow our body to, one, recognize that it's being stretched, but also allow us to relax into the deepest possible range of motion. Okay, so from here, I will be in the position of what's called external rotation with my front hip. I will work to increase the stretch on this right hip by arching my back, lifting my tailbone, and getting in the deepest possible stretch position. That will allow me to make sure I'm training at my end range, which will allow me to improve my mobility, right? It will allow me to improve the strength that I have at larger ranges of motion. From there, I will hold that position for 2 minutes. For the sake of this video, we're not gonna do the full 2 minutes. I will then do what's called a PAILs contraction, which will be me driving down with my left foot into the floor, so I'm progressing the angle. If this is the angle, imagine that I was doing this, right? So that would be progressing the angle. Because I have the floor here, it's not gonna allow me to, but it's the intent, it's the action of that hip, right? So that would be the progressive angle. I will start with a 10-second ramp. So it'd be first second, 10%, second, 20%, all the way up to 100% by that 10th second. From there, I will hold that max contraction, that 100% contraction, for another 10 seconds. So we'll do about a 20-second PAILs, and then my RAILs contraction will be what's called the regressive angular isometric loading. So now I'm trying to close this angle down. I'm trying to make this angle shorter, not necessarily by going lower, but by imagining I was trying to lift that foot. So I'm driving that knee to the floor, I'm trying to lift this foot here, and I'm closing the angle by pulling myself deeper into that stretch position. So the PAILs, we start slow, build up, max effort. RAILs, we just go right into that maximum contraction for about 15 seconds. We will then relax, and then we will take about 30 seconds, even up to 2 minutes, and then we will go into our second or third set if that was in our program for the day. So that would be an example from the 90-90. From a, say, 90-90 internal rotation, I would be now working the back hip. So I'm increasing that stretch by internally rotating my pelvis on the fixed femur, right? My femur can't move, so I'm just rotating from here, increasing internal rotation of this hip. Again, I'm gonna hold that stretch for about 2 minutes, going nice and easy, making sure I'm breathing, especially utilizing belly breathing to make sure my body stays as relaxed as possible. And then from there, after that 2 minutes, I will drive down back foot into the floor, trying to increase or progress this angle that I have here by doing this, right? Again, because the floor is there, I'm not gonna be able to, but that's actually the action, that's the intention. And then I'll build that up for 10, max effort for 10. And then my RAILs contraction, I'm trying to drive my knee to the floor, lift that foot, and then close the angle down by rotating deeper into that stretch. So the beauty of PAILs and RAILs is that it allows us to not only increase the range of motion through the stretch, but it also allows us to increase the neural representation at that joint by strengthening both angles, right? So we're driving down and we're lifting up. We're hitting both sides of that joint to make sure that we not only increase the range of motion, but we're also increasing the ability to control that joint from both directions.